Jeff has started recording. Excellent.
How are we doing?
Good. So you made me watch a science fiction movie.
I thought that'd throw you a curveball.
It was a curveball. I didn't. I've never watched a movie similar to that. I'd never heard of it even.
District 9 from 2009. From 2009. And what did you think?
There's parts of it I liked, and there's other parts that's like, huh. I wasn't
what was the huh?
I saw the connections to South Africa and the apartheid and xenophobia and stuff like that, segregation. I caught all those connections, but for me it was just so flippin' bloody shoot 'em up stuff that it's like, okay, you're kind of losing me on that. But other than that, like I liked a bunch of things about it.
The fact that the first half of the movie was very documentary style. It felt like you were watching something and went, I didn't know about these aliens in South Africa. Like, it seemed so real.
Yeah.
And then they fell apart on a couple of things that seemed silly, that you go knocking door to door to say, please sign this paper to get, like, that didn't, and you'll be fined. Like, none of that made any sense.
Yeah, some of it was, and like the aliens had English names and they didn't speak English. And how did they learn to speak each other's language? Like none of that made any sense to me. And it wasn't sort of, maybe I have to watch it a few times and catch all those things. But it was like too much is going like, why is he called Christopher or whatever his name was? It's like, that made no sense to me. Like, and how does he understand what he's saying when they're going, oh yeah, okay, thanks, I'll do that.
They've had 30 years worth of embedding in the society, and you looked how much it reminds you of Black people in America 100 years ago when the sign said, you know, no aliens here past this point, only humans, that kind of thing. It was very, and then you saw the way they treated them was very much in your mind of slave trade stuff, where you don't really care. You throw them off the back of a truck. Who cares if they fall down? Kick them if you need to. That kind of mentality. Yeah,
that's what we got to see. And while I appreciated the look at that, looking into it a little bit, is like it was apartheid from South Africa. So at first I thought, you know, the big alien ship comes over a city, and it's like they always do New York. You know, Independence Day, all those things they have, you know, the big alien vessel is over the American cities that we know. But this was Johannesburg. And I thought, oh, okay, at least we have a different, fresh look at it. But it's like Johannesburg went through segregation and apartheid. So it was very, I think, speaking to that. Apparently there was a district, what was it called? District 9? No, that was the one, but there's an African one, I think, is District 6 in South Africa. So they used the exact same thing. And they had, I guess there was 98% blacks there and 1% whites. And they made all the blacks move because all of a sudden the land got better than it used to be. So they just moved them. So it's retelling that story exactly. So I appreciated the efforts to do that, to make us look. But I mean, I didn't like the aliens. They're the insectoid kind of, like, I didn't warm up to them. Like E.T. was, everyone loved E.T. at the end, and I didn't love all these, you know, I didn't understand their.
You didn't have pathos for like the little baby one, and
eventually, but it took a long time for me to, like, it was at the end of the movie that I finally felt that.
Yeah.
So they should have given it to me a little sooner. And they, you know, they had the quest, you know, you got to find the magic fluid that's going to, you know, save us all. But they sure set you up for a sequel. Holy moly.
What's the sequel?
The guy coming back, and because he says, I'll come back in 3 years and fix you. And he didn't do that at the end.
No, he said, I can fix you in 3 years. It'll take 3 years.
Yeah, but he's not going to magically turn into, you know, human again once the 3 years is up.
Why? That's what he said he'd do. Like he said, this takes 3 years. The process of going forward with whatever thing they did turned him into half of a prawn.
But he's fully prawn at the end.
Yes, yes.
So we haven't, for him to get back to human again is the sequel or whatever.
Oh, I see what you mean, because he was sort of standing there alone, and
he's making little flowers for his wife, and like that was kind of okay. They wrapped that up a little bit, so I appreciated that. I like too that it was an unlikely hero. He's a bit of a goofball, and he ends up changing the course of so much of the story. So I like that little part of it. I like unlikely heroes.
yeah, I did too. He was a nerd at the beginning and almost a bad actor, and then he became a fantastic actor.
Yeah, it's like he was a bad actor on purpose. Like he was trying to. Yeah, so he was a really good actor, actually, I think.
Yeah, I agree for sure. What else? So the guy who played him,
never heard of him.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him either. There's another movie called Chappie, which is if you'd watch it, it's exactly feels like this movie, like the same. It's done in South Africa, and it's about a robot that's essentially sentient, but it looks like a mecha robot, and somebody's made it so it can have feelings and stuff. And these gangster people grab it and get it to do bad things for them and teach it to rob people and stuff. So it's a very good, and he's in that too. The same, Charlotto Copley.
Yeah. I like his transformation into the prawn, how it's done slowly, and it's, first it's his arm, and then, a bunch of things are happening and growing the claw, and then more on the back. And yeah, I kind of like that transformation, and the way they said, 10 hours from infection, 24 hours. Like I appreciated that, because sometimes you have no idea. They give you this weird sort of, you don't know if this is 3 weeks later or not. So I appreciated that. There wasn't like flashbacks and things that made you go annoying. Yeah, there was like a quest movie. He's got to find the fluid. So those are usually sort of fun. Indiana Jones trying to find the Holy Grail.
First realize it's the fluid, and then go find it. Go. I mean, I didn't like at the very end when the bad army guy is a standoff with him, and he's got a big gun. He's been shooting at the Mechzilla warrior metal thing over and over again, and finally he falls out. So what does he do? He drops his gun and takes his little pistol out, and he walks up to him. Like, if he wants to kill him, stand where you are, kill him instantly, and get the heck out of Dodge. Because sure enough, it reminded me of Batman and Robin. Like, let's leave them over the vat of hot wax, and let's go and have a fun dinner, guys. And we'll surely they'll be dead by morning.
They won't get out. Yeah.
And that reminded me, it was so silly the way he drops it and goes on. So the screenplay had some lacking that could have just been cleaned up by not saying sign this thing. Just round them up and tell them to get out. Don't pretend it's. There's one point where one of the Nigerian guys does something bad, and he goes, "You'll get a fine for that." What do you mean? You stuck a gun in his face and threatened to kill him, and you're going to fine him for having his car with not snow tires on it? You know what I mean? Like it was silliness.
You know what? It was almost like getting them to sign it, and the idea that he pushed it away and he touched it and he said, "Oh, that's the signature." It's almost like they had that bit and they wanted to use it somewhere, and so it's like, "Oh, look, we can put it in here," even though it kind of diminished the thing, because then it's like, what kind of society is trying to get them to sign? Like, I don't get that. Like, I didn't get that.
Well, I think that was back to the rules of the whole thing. I think that was the you're going to get fined for it. And like when they started out going into the thing and said, you have to do this. It was just very strange how they seem to take this life and death situation and then tack on little silliness to it. So I think that was the signing. Maybe there was something in historical slave culture that, somebody put their thumbprint on something, and that proved that they did it. Now they are part of a group that has to be sent somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like the marking of the X because you didn't know how to sign stuff. Like, so we don't really know for sure at the outset how intelligent these insectoid aliens are. At first, we think, oh, they might be kind of dumb. Well, the other thing is like this thing is hovering over the thing for 20 years. Like, how is it? Like, why isn't it just sitting down somewhere? Like, and it's like there's shade in half the city that never, like, you can't grow anything because it blocks out the sun because it's so big.
Johannesburg, you're not growing anything in the middle of the city anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. It's too
I
much
like
of a
that.
cliche.
I like that it sat there hovering because that's what other technologies would do. It would be
Okay.
magic to us. We wouldn't understand it. What did Carl Sagan say? New technology should be indistinguishable from magic or something like that. In other words, you don't understand it, and that's what we don't understand. They don't try and explain it, and
well, but they do have things like I remember someone once commented that I think it was the movie. I think it's Independence Day, the one with Will Smith, and he gets on the alien ship and drives it out into the mothership and infects it with a virus, right? So, but he gets into the alien ship, and there is a control center and a chair made for him, and it's like the aliens didn't have that kind of body, so where did that come from? Show us the fact that it will form to you instead of looking like a plot.
The prawn machine, the mech warrior that he gets into fit him perfectly. And it would never fit a prawn. Yeah, I didn't like that either. Yeah.
But I mean, the prawns, they had some really good, like with their bodies, you can see some breathing out of this weird spot, and there's some interesting. Okay, they put someone had a lot of fun creating that, this race, but I couldn't tell the difference between male and female. I couldn't understand their names and their differences. Like they were all one thing to me. Like I didn't even know that it was his best friend had died, and then when they went to break in and find the fluid, he saw the body of his friend, and it's like I didn't even catch that until like later on.
Yeah, no, I realized that was the body of I'd seen this years ago, and probably like 2009, and I didn't remember lots of it. I remembered the outcome, and that he was going to become more and more of a prawn, and that he was the goat in terms of they would use him against himself. Like that he's sort of stuck with, and that he was proud for a little while. Well, I'm going to lead this thing, and then he's a sacrificial lamb ultimately.
Yeah. No, and they they have the bad guys, and the fact that they were Nigerian, I kind of didn't get that because Nigeria isn't all that close to South Africa. So I'm trying to think, why would they pick Nigerian people to be the bad guys? Like the gangs.
I think Nigerians are so in America. The Nigerians are very businesslike and make more money. In other words, the average Nigerian in America makes more than the average white person in America, and it's to show they use that statistic to show that it's not a race thing. It's a cultural thing, because Nigerians is a lot like the average Asian makes more money than the average white person because they go to school and become doctors, and you know what I mean? Like they're forces them to learn. And Nigeria is that same thing. They're very business-minded culture and growth and education, and they're also in 2009 known as the Prince from Nigeria wanting the scam kind of thing. I wonder if that sort of goes into I'm going to use Nigerians as the bad guys because
they had to pick something, right? You have to pick, someone has to be the bad guy. So they pick someone, but I kind of did like that wasn't, I won't say it wasn't explained, but I didn't understand the depth of why they did that, because I'm sure they did it for a very specific reason.
Yeah.
So
what would you give the movie 1 to 10?
It's hard to say. I'm sure it's a good movie, but the parts that I didn't like about it, I didn't like it enough to give it a high mark. Right. So I'd say 5 or 6.
I was hoping it was going to be better than it ended up being because of the poor plot points. But I would go with 5 or 6 too.
Yeah, I probably could give it like, and it was also so flippin' bloody. Like they just enjoyed splatting the alien weapons just, disintegrated people with all this little, the bodies just were, it was like so much of it. And I like, the hidden place underneath the house so that, the aliens were proved to be quite smart. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind the blood and gore because it
was too much for me.
Yeah, that didn't bother me. I mean, I didn't like it either, but I didn't want more of it. But it certainly set up the hatred for the humanoids that they would so gleefully go kill them and be happy to do it. And that reminds you of how we treat cattle in going into you know what I mean, like
to be slaughtered.
Yeah, just kicking them and poking them and prodding them, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea that people were ever treated that way is pretty reprehensible. Like that, it just doesn't make any. Like I don't understand how people can treat each other that way. But I guess there's a mentality that maybe happens when people are, I don't know, challenged by certain things.
But you did notice that in South Africa, the whites and the blacks were on the same team.
Yeah.
So like the tribalism, I don't know if you remember after 9/11 happened that I remember interviewing, and everybody they interviewed, black or white, were on the same side going, this is terrible what happened to our land, not what you've done to us. And like they were united. And that would happen if an alien came. All of a sudden, Muslims and Christians would be united because we have a common enemy and a common person to fear.
Yeah, I think that they should have focused a little more on that. I think that was just kind of a given, and I think it should have been, hey, see, we're getting along. But they didn't really address the black-white issue in South Africa because they were addressing the alien people, humans issue.
I thought it was funny when they said the Human Rights Coalition is coming down to check on this movement. And it's like alien and human rights, the live rights. That was sort of funny.
Yeah. Well, there was a few little things like that. Sanctuary Park, calling it that when it's like it's not really a sanctuary, and things like that. Just what else was I?
When the guy was showing the pamphlet to the little one and going, "This will be good. We'll go here," and he's going, "No, it's not. It's essentially a concentration camp. It's not what we told you it was going to be."
Yeah. No, so it was good to watch it. I don't know that I'll say, oh, let's watch it again. I think,
the documentary style was the impressive part for me.
Yes, it looks like found footage.
Yeah.
Of and done rather well, in that way. I like how the guy was a dupe in a lot of ways. This, just a schmuck, and then he ends up being the head of whatever, and he gets a promotion, and then the promotion doesn't end up being so good.
Well, I loved it that he's the head of the place, and they get into the back of the huge military vehicle with all the armor on it, and they're heading off for we're going to evict these people and knock on their doors and tell them they got to leave soon. And they were showing the people who are coming with him, and one of them is assistant trainee. He's training, and he's about to get into a thing and go risk his life to knock on the door. Like it was just, how about that guy has 25 years experience as a military police guy or something.
Yeah.
Sort of
and
funny.
They didn't send in the military to get the signature. They send the head of.
Yeah. And he goes, don't bring so many bullets. Don't bring so many bullets. That comes from the whole war thing in Iraq, where the generals and they want to look a certain way, so they try and make perceptions happen, and you can't fire until you hear a shot first, and the shot has to be within 1,000 feet, you know what I mean, from the echo or whatever. And if you don't, it's that same kind of, you're bound by these rule sets when you're in war, which almost should have no rule sets. You just live, kill the other guy and live.
I think it was the Civil War when they were talking about don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes. So again, that's just a way of of saying the same thing, that we're going to be more righteous than you during our war. We won't kill women and children or whatever it is. And it turns out you end up doing that. And it's like, well, we didn't mean to, or whatever. So it was a look at war. It was a look at like the apartheid, xenophobia, a lot of things like that.
It felt more like a look at slavery than apartheid. Apartheid in the sense that it's now we're doing apartheid to the aliens. I agree, and that's South Africa who understands that apartheid and separation of those cultures. But when I saw them, being kicked and pulled off trucks and arms chopped off and shot if they didn't look the right way, that made me sort of think of how they would, pulling people off the boat and into America, and how they would have treated them because they thought they were lesser than human beings.
Yeah, and these things were lesser than human beings because they were insectoids, right? So that's their mindset, is that they get to do these are, and they also didn't cover enough of the 20 years, like what was it like? Like was there an integration? Was there,
when they first landed, talk about
like
fear.
So in that way, it was like, it feels like we're coming in at the end of a story, really, when it's their beginning of telling it. When it's like that, the 20 years would have been interesting to look at too. I remember that there was a television show called V, and it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. Just that look at, when do you start defending who you are and where, your country or your situation? When does that become, you're not allowed to stomp on other people? Like when are you allowed to, say I not in my neighborhood?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an interesting look. So
you want to wrap it up?
Sure, we will.
Have a short one so people don't fall asleep watching it.
Yeah, all the hundreds of
all our viewers
that
ask for you. Have you thought of a one for next week?
No, next time. No.
That's next week, next month.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll do that.
I will.
I will not hang it up. I will stop the recording. How do I do that? I do here and stop recording now.
So we'll see you next month.